Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is Stan Houston for Interesting Ideas for a Thursday. A day, usually, as I say, where Thursday is oftentimes a day of turbulence. And there's not just turbulence today. There's obviously been incredible turbulence around the world and in incredible tragedy fashion throughout the past week. We're now almost a full week into what we're now simply calling the war that is being fought. My title was meant to be a little bit, obviously, to try and get you to be attracted, maybe give you attention. But it has some roots in my own speaking and thinking, and it will perhaps help us to understand the significance of what we are all about, and perhaps to help remind us of some of the blessings that we all should be aware of and thankful for. So if I could try and do that today, I would be grateful. Yes, Interesting Ideas. The program begins right now. In their attack, would Hamas have tried to kill Jesus if he were around today? Well, I don't know exactly what anything would happen or what would do, but I think I want to frame this for you in terms of my own outlook on life as a committed follower. And those of you who know a little bit about my work, I was a longtime business performance coach. I was obviously a broadcaster most of my life. And I was helping people learn how to take good principles and good life practices and put them in their life and business and live better now. And that's what Interesting Ideas is all about. So we've been doing that for some time. And we've obviously developed programs where we teach people how to coach and how to coach others, how to mentor others, how to be a world-class business performance coach. That practice is growing and going. And if you want to be a leader in the 21st century, you need to have a coach and you need to be a coach. That's the way it is. That will be a leadership requirement going forward. You have to be able to be one and teach one. That's how the world will work for those who want it to work well. Well, what I've done is oftentimes I have said, well, Jesus was a man of 2,000 years ago in Israel, in a really tough situation. They were occupied. It was a cruel, tough, hard world, and there was war and bloodshed and tragedy and triumph, and all kinds of things went bad and forward. And Jesus lived right in the middle of that. But I've oftentimes said, what would it be like if he were here today? You know, now there is that thing that goes back a number of years ago when we wore bracelets, or some people did. I really wasn't into that kind of thing, but it said, WWJD, what would Jesus do? So the question B is, okay, before I do something is, what would Jesus do? And that's a nice test. I mostly would say is, first of all, what would Jesus believe? How would Jesus think? As well as, what would he do? And make it even more personal. What would Jesus do if he were like me? If he were in my situation, if he were a broadcaster, would he be on the radio? If I'm a soldier, would Jesus have joined the IDF? What would it like if we say Jesus is an entrepreneur, which he was and is? What can I learn about being an entrepreneur from Jesus? And then, What if Jesus were a broadcaster? So we have a program called How to Be a World-Class Jesus Broadcaster. If the world said, the universe said, God said, Jesus, go there, then, and he did. But what if that had not been the case? He came here and now. Same message, same story, same kind of guy, except he's living in a very different world with very different technology and different situations. Would he be on the radio? Would he be on television? How would he do his work in a modern day Middle East? How would he do that? And so if we can get an idea of that, maybe we can get a better idea of how we should live too. So that's the kind of work I do. And it's not necessarily about convincing anybody about a theological or religious argument. It is to answer the question, how then shall we live now? How can we make our mark? How can we build a better world? Maybe even how can we help create a different world? How can we make sure that the people we love and care for are reached and touched, and they prosper and are blessed because we love and care for them and we want the very best for them. And so that's the framework that I put this in. And I simply wonder, in all of the mess of the world, if this man were wandering around in whatever way he would he have a car? Would he have a truck? Would he have a bus? Would he walk? Would he have an airplane? Would he have a radio program? What would he do? But okay. And all of a sudden, these people come across. Would there be a point where they'd say, "This guy, we got to get him. We got to get him. He's a Jew. We know that, and he's for sure a Jew. And let's take him out." Would that have happened? That's just a question for some little bit of thought. So that's what I mean. But here is the way it's also flowing. We are now told in day 6, and I just saw this came across, it said there is a humanitarian crisis beginning in Gaza. Really? How's that? It was Israel that was attacked. Now, why is there a humanitarian crisis taking place in Gaza? Well, I think you know part of the answer, but I just simply want to talk a little bit more about that, and in a way, how it may help me to be even a little more grateful today about how I live and how lucky I am. I'm Stan Houston. These are interesting ideas. Just a few more thoughts, and it will lead us to say, why didn't they think of that? How did that happen? We'll be right back. There will be a lot of post-mortems on this, the war. It's interesting. That's what we're calling it, It's oftentimes what we do, when in the 1866, 67, people didn't say, well, back during the Civil War, they just called it the war. And of course, for many years after my family's generation, my folks' generation, when they said war, it always referred to World War II. Later on, they didn't use the word, they'd say Korea. But to say Korea meant the conflict in Korea, though it wasn't formally a war. It was a police action. Take that underhand. And there was no formal declaration of war by the U.S. Congress in Vietnam. No, there wasn't. In terms of a war, it didn't happen. But of course, you know how silly that sounds. But that is the semantics of it all. Okay, the war has happened. And right now, the reports are coming in that there is no food coming in. There's no fuel. There's no electric power. There are no lights. no gasoline, fuel. All of those things have been cut off. Well, the reason is because many of those things came from Israel or from Israel. You've got these 1.5 million, 2 million people living on a 20 mile by maybe 6 or 7 mile strip of land, the most densely populated place in the world. They don't have farms and cattle and food growth. I mean, people packed in food and fuel and power, all those things you need to live, at least in modern day world. They had to come through other sources, and many of them had to come through Israel, and the Israelis have decided that they aren't going to allow them anymore. It's also been reported that there was maybe up to 20,000 Gazans every day who actually were given permission to cross the border to go to work. They had a job. And they could do that and do their job, and hopefully they could then make some money and get paid, and they could go back to their home in Gaza. Well, obviously they've stopped that. So does that mean 15 or 20,000 people are now out of a job with no money? And so even if they had money, what would they pay for it for? Food, fuel, lights, whatever. No, they can't have them. It will be, the word hellhole obviously gives a description to it. And then on top of that, you've got 350 to 400,000 Israelis who are on the border, and they are equipped with some of the finest weapons in the world, and they are very much PO'd at what has happened. And it soon appears that they're going to get the go, and with an incredible amount of food, they will have plenty of food, they will have fuel, they will have power, they will have energy, they will have big bad weapons and guns, and they will have bombs and airplanes coming in and smashing people all over the place and smashing situations. And obviously, it's going to be a terrible, terrible, terrible thing. And so the people who are there are going to have a terrible, terrible life until, for many of them, it ends. But there's a part of me that says, didn't they think that would happen? When they made the plans, what did they think? Did they believe that the Israelis would surrender right away and that none of those consequences would take place? Or if they did, they said, well, but we'll get a whole bunch of bad publicity for the Israelis when they do all these terrible things to us. Yeah, that's true. Are you stupid enough to believe that the Israelis at this point care about bad publicity? And maybe what you did beforehand is somewhat compromising the power of what you think is your good publicity. Didn't anyone think that way? I can't believe how many times in my life I've had to work with situations, and after hearing the mess, I've done just like what many of you have done. I walk out and said, what were they thinking? What were they thinking? Didn't they plan for this? Didn't they expect this? Didn't they have a contingency for this? Did they really honestly believe that that would work out? I leave it with you. But here's the deal. I have a little discomfort in my body. Called the doctor. Answered right away. It will be taken care of. I have some of the best medical care in the world. And the medical care and medicine is going away in Gaza. That happened. The car needs gasoline. No problem. Sat down and it's still a little bit expensive, but no problem. Food, plenty of food. Fuel, just fine. Power, the lights in the studio are glowing. The board is chugging up and down with its modular levels, working perfectly. I can check the state of the world at any time by turning on a television. Here's the deal. I am profoundly blessed. And sometimes when you feel the pain of those poor people who are going through the pain in the war, you also have a sense of, I'm sure glad that's not happening to me and my children. Oh, how terrible that would be. I can't imagine how, if today I didn't know if my two daughters were alive. I can't believe how wretched my life would be. But they're fine. One's in New York City and got a great job with the Apple company, and the other one is in Boston and is well known for her work, has a beautiful home in the pharmaceutical industry. And I have a very modest, very nice little apartment now in one of the best areas of the world to live. I am blessed beyond measure. I don't deserve this. I have certainly been graced amazingly just even today. And of course, one of the things the poor people of Gaza will discover very tragically and very truthfully is that they had a number of small blessings. They had food, they had fuel, they had medicine, they had schools, they had those things that make life not only bearable but doable, and now they don't. And they don't know if they ever will. And so they will not even be able to enjoy the things that we call small blessings. So today I just simply wind the program up by saying, pray for all who do suffer. But I particularly pray for those, I'm very careful about this, but I pray primarily for the people of Israel, that they will be able to survive this, because it's going to get worse. All of those reservists are coming in, and their fathers and their mothers, and they are brothers and sisters, and many of those people were in the Israeli army for their 2 or 3 years, and then they go back into their careers, but they're still in the reserves, and now they're being called back to combat. And that means these people who've got lives, careers, families, and jobs, many of them are going to die and lose that opportunity, because the battle that will come will certainly take not only the lives of the opponents and the enemies, but it will take many of their lives too. So it is a time for weeping. It is a time for being thankful for what we have. And it certainly is a time to pray. Come, Lord Jesus, bring peace to this wretched world. All the best and blessings to you. Take care. We'll see where the next couple days bring, and if we have something worthwhile to say come the weekend. Again, best and blessings, and bye for now.